So I want to start with just a reality check for my own benefit. How many people here have actually heard of my company, Volcano? About half. So that for the young artists in here, like I've had my company for 16 years, so that's a reality check for everybody. Only half of the people in an arts crowd have even heard of my company. So I need to work, Volcano, I need to work harder. There's kind of two things I just want to give you as ideas to start with. One is to think about where we are right now, and one is to think about what we're all doing. A friend of mine named Bongi Damoyi, who's a lawyer from Johannesburg, South Africa, I had lunch with her this week, and she wants to move to Canada. And I said, well, why do you want to move to Canada? And she said, because the world is here. She said, the world is not in Johannesburg. And I thought that was really interesting, and it speaks to a sort of a growing awareness I think we're all having in this city in particular, but also in this country, that Canada, and specifically Toronto is the most multicultural city in the world, is positioned in a really unique way in a world that is becoming increasingly interconnected and globalized. I mean, everything that's going on in the Middle East right now speaks to the idea that there's a young generation that is more interconnected globally than at any other point in human history. I think we in Toronto are, because we all get along so well, are uniquely positioned to make art about this new globalized phenomenon. So you're all part of that. We're all a part of that. And I think that's a tremendously exciting thing. I don't think many of the big institutions in Canada have realized that yet. And there's lots of impediments, historical and otherwise, to being interconnected and to just art making in general in Canada. And I don't really want to bore everybody by getting into those. I'm sure you've run up against lots of barriers. But that's about where we are. So I think we're in a really exciting time. The other thing is about what we're all doing. And I want everybody who has a pen and paper to write 4 words down. Now, this is an idea that was given to me by a guy named Michael Kaiser. Michael Kaiser runs the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., which is basically the biggest theater production organization in the United States and arguably one of the biggest in the world. Before that, he ran the Royal Opera Covent Garden, and before that, the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theatre. In all 3 cases, those organizations had massive deficit problems, and he completely turned around all 3 organizations. Everywhere he went, he changed the organization from something that was in just incredible debt problems. So he's really good at what he does. And my board president and my general manager and myself went to a seminar he gave at the Kennedy Center and basically drank the Kool-Aid. He's brilliant and really friendly. So the word I want you to write, it's going to be a circle you're going to write down. At the top, you write art. So that's at 12 o'clock. At 3 o'clock, write the word marketing. You can also put in brackets storytelling, which is a friendlier way of thinking of marketing. Storytelling. So marketing, storytelling. At the 6 o'clock, you write family. And then over at 9 o'clock, you write money. And then you draw little Venn arrows that in a clockwise direction. So art leads to marketing, marketing leads to family, family leads to money, and then money leads back into art. So this is his, he, like me, doesn't think of fundraising so much as fundraising, but as the gathering together of resources in order to make your art. It took him, as he said, it took me 30 years to figure out these 4 words. So now he gives them out for free, which is really good of him. Conventional thinking doesn't often think of art making in this way. We usually think of it as like, I need money for my art, got to get money. There are these other 2 steps that he says you need to have in place before you get money. The most important thing, and this is what I probably everybody realizes, is that you have to make art. And you have to make art that's good. And you have to attack that with rigor and intelligence and training and ingenuity and everything that we as artists have to bring to our art making. If we're not making excellent art, it's game over before we're even started. So that's the most important thing. And it's something that it's really easy to forget, because once you start telling stories about your art to other people, if your art isn't ready, if it's not good, if you don't know how to talk about it, you're gonna just run into problems very early on. So art making is super important. Then marketing, this is a thing that people often forget. It's how you talk about the art that you're making and how the people that are around the art talk about that art. Super important, especially before the art's made. And a lot of us are creation companies. If you have really good art marketing, there's a story that starts to develop around your art and around your company that will help enormously. There are two kinds of marketing. There's the marketing that everybody knows about when you're selling your show. It's the story you tell about your show to the press, to the general public, to your friends, to everything. Then there's something called institutional marketing, which a lot of people forget about. The more show-specific, production-specific marketing costs money. You have to buy ads, you have to make posters. Institutional marketing is usually free. And in some ways, it's even more important. So it's the marketing that says, my company is the coolest, hippest thing in the city right now, and you want to be a part of it. The Alvin Ailey, Michael Kaiser gave this great example of institutional marketing that worked. Alvin Ailey, huge deficit, big problem. He asked a question like I asked at the beginning. Everywhere he went, have you heard of Alvin Ailey? And people thought, yeah, isn't that who wrote Roots? Which is Alex Haley. So they kind of knew it had something to do with Black America. And he said, okay, we're failing at institutional marketing because people don't know about the premier African-American company in dance in the US. When he took over, Bill Clinton was about to be inaugurated. And he phoned Bill Clinton's chief of staff, and he said, hey, isn't it amazing? We're available for the inauguration. And so the chief of staff was put in this really awkward position of, I can't say no to Black America. That would be a really bad first step. So they were like, great, sure. And then Michael Kaiser went to the dancers, and he said, there's going to be a photograph of the new president. He said, you're fired unless you're in the front row of that photograph behind Bill Clinton. So they did the show. It was televised. It went to, I don't know how many, tens of millions of homes across the US. Then that photograph of Bill Clinton, he said, everybody's dressed in tuxedo except the Alvin Ailey dancers who are in costume, and they're all right behind the president. And he said that photo went everywhere. It was in the front page of every major daily newspaper in the United States, Time magazine, like everywhere. He said it cost them nothing. And he said suddenly hundreds of millions of people saw the Alvin Ailey Dance Company. So, I mean, like we're ever going to have that opportunity, but it's a great example of institutional marketing. So that's marketing. That helps develop what he calls your family. So your family is everybody that's close to you in any way. It's your audience, first and foremost. It's your artists that you work with. It's your board of directors, if you have a board of directors. It's your collaborators. It's everybody that has some kind of first degree connection with your art. You have to market to them too. You have to tell the story of your company to your collaborators, to your fellow artists, to your audience, and to your board of directors. This is something we often forget. I do myself. That like Michael Kaiser calls his board of directors, which is like, I don't know, there's like 100 people on that board. He says, once a week I call everybody on the phone and talks to them so that they feel that they're part of something, that they're really included and engaged. And I think that that's really, really important. When you have a happy family, the family then starts marketing, and then that's how you raise the money. You raise money through ticket sales, through donations, through volunteering. And then he says all of the money you raise goes back into your art. he said, and then once you've got that circle humming, he says, only then do you ever think about using your money for anything other than your art making, like a capital campaign or buying a van to tour, anything like that. That just made so much sense to me. So those are the two things I wanted to talk about first off, is this idea of where we are, sort of, and when we are, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of that, and then what we're doing and how to do it in a really effective way to create the art that we all want to create. So I can talk for ages about all of these things, but maybe I'll take some questions now. If anybody has some, yeah?
I know you gave the example, the Ailey example with the president, but what are some other examples of the institutional?
It's a great question. So I asked him this question because he's like, the budget at the Kennedy Center is, I don't know, $100 million or something. It's crazy. The budget at my company is considerably less than that. And I said, how do I do institutional marketing?